The Freedom Summer Project drew nearly 1,000 volunteers from across America to Mississippi. They were intent on registering Black voters, building a new political party, and shattering the foundations of white supremacy. Behind it was a coalition of leading civil rights groups, finding local families willing to risk their lives to provide safe havens for summer volunteers was crucial.
It's one of these classic stories of an independent director and producer who has poured their life into trying to make a film and yet hasn't quite got to the finish line. And we saw the material that David Shulman had put together and felt it was quite remarkable, and we wanted to do something with it. And it was a great team effort, and I think at the end of the day what David had done was very special, and we were able to take it to the final stage.
I had seen many films about civil rights history, and I had not seen anything that attempted to focus on some of the economic issues behind the civil rights movement or some of the class aspects. And I was less interested in making a story about what happened, but how it happened. Once I was able to make my way to Holmes County, and once I was able to make contact with some local landowners, some local independent farmers that were involved in the movement, there was just no shortage of inspiration, inspiring people, inspiring families, inspiring events. It just took on a kind of momentum of its own.
They were sleeping all over the house. My room and the other rooms in the back, there were, on average, we was at least 8 people or 10 people in the room. They were sleeping in the garage. The old barn is down. We had plenty of hay in the barn, and sometimes they were sleeping in the barn. We had people from New York, California. There were about 35 people living in that house at one time.
You look at the civil rights movement, you've got Martin Luther King, you've got Malcolm X, you've got some extraordinary, charismatic, larger-than-life personalities. And then we tend to ignore the social movements lying underneath it all. And in this particular case, what was going on in Mississippi and the courage of the small landowners down there was quite astonishing, but had been largely ignored. And at the Smithsonian Channel, we love telling stories about history, about American history, that people think they know, and then we discover that there's something else going on that they've never heard of before.
The role of the landowners or farmers, it's not necessarily a very obvious one. It certainly wasn't obvious to me. It was many years actually connecting the dots and getting to a point where I felt confident that this was a credible analysis.
The Milestone community would help lead a social revolution in the state, with farmers at the forefront of the most dramatic battles in Mississippi's civil rights history. They would go up against a system that used biased laws and fear tactics to disenfranchise Black citizens. But this time, the harassment and intimidation did not work.
You know, it's so historic, but it's so topical today. We're looking at a period in history where there's a lot of racial turmoil going on, and you look at it sometimes and think, why? When you see this film, you understand why. You understand how deep the roots of racism are and how that would resonate down the centuries and down the decades. So that's incredibly important in that way, but you also understand the importance of voting rights. And right now there are struggles going on in the South over voting rights. They're not new struggles, they're age-old struggles, and they're deeply emotional. Well, it's a fantastic honor for the Smithsonian Channel and also for David Shulman.
Surprise and quite an honor to get the news about the Television Academy Honor Award.
And of course, we feel particularly delighted to be in the same category as Homeland, and indeed great films like Alex Gibney's, Go and Clear, which is an extraordinary picture of Scientology, and just to be in that group is an honor for us.